icon on DeWittDailyNews.com.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police splatter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in studio today is Reagan Tibbs, commercial ag educator with U of I Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. Good to have you back, Reagan. How are you?
Good, Seth. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for asking. Thanks for making time for us as always. And I tell you what, the planning season is in full swing. I haven't seen a planning report in a while. How are things going? What are we seeing?
Yeah, USDA usually publishes those on Mondays. So the last report we had was from this past Monday, the 27th. For Illinois, it reported that we were at 29% of all of our corn acres were planted, and 36 of our soybean acres were planted across the state. Let's compare those to the 5-year averages. For corn, our 5-year average is 19%, so we're well ahead of our 5-year average for that. And with soybeans, our usual 5-year average is 18%. So we're almost double at our usual planting. And that's because, that we've gotten those beneficial rains. The temperatures have been really, really nice across all of April. And so, yeah, a lot of those conditions have really helped us get the crops in the ground. And not only are we getting them planted, we're starting to see some emerged as well. In that same report, we had corn. 12% of our corn acres that have been planted had already emerged. Our 5-year average is 2%. And with soybeans, of those acres that have been planted, 15% were emerged, and our 5-year average was 2%. So again, not only are we getting the crop in the ground, we're also getting the crop starting to emerge and get a lot of those benefits from the temperature and rain.
I wonder if those numbers will start to change over the next 5 years, because we see, around 2020, early planting soybeans really became very popular. And I'm hearing from guys as we talk here this morning, guys were in the fields in late March. I started calling on guys in early April. Do you anticipate maybe that number increasing in terms of the soybean side of things?
So that 5-year number, I believe, accounts from 2021 through 2025, that 5-year average.
Sure.
So absolutely it's going to pick up on those things. I heard one producer say they had all their soybeans planted by April the 15th, which is really early for this area. And again, it's get them in the ground. And what happened right after that April 15th timeline? We've had those really beneficial rains that have come through. We've had really good temperatures that have helped that crop get the good start. So definitely, I think those 5-year averages will continue to shift, especially now if we're at 29% and 36% planted at this point of the year. Definitely, we're going to see a lot of improvement over the 5-year average.
You've talked about beneficial rains. We've also seen some real heavy rains in places. How much concern from your end of things on replant?
I definitely think that's going to be a concern. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were asking how much. I think with some of our acres that have already started to emerge, there may not be as much pre-plant, but for those that were planted, especially after this last round of heavy rain we got last week, I definitely think that we could see some replanting. I know there's still over by me in Logan County, and I saw it here on my way over this morning. A lot of standing water still in the field, and the ditches were still full. You can see a lot of washout areas. So those might be areas where we have to see a little bit of replanting this year. But thankfully, we're early enough in the growing season that decision is a little bit easier to make. And so, yeah, I definitely think replanting could have to be a factor.
What about guys just not replanting and taking the insurance money?
That could be. It just kind of depends on the financial position. What inputs have you already put into that crop, especially with fuel prices the way they are now, with fertilizer prices the way they are now. Those are, very tricky financial situations to figure out. I think it's just kind of figure out where the operation is at the moment, and then moving forward, does it make sense to either leave it bare, take that insurance money, or to go ahead and replant, or even maybe put something like a cover crop in there so it's not sitting barren for the rest of the year.
I know you're a data guy. What are you watching as it relates to the planting season? Anything specific?
Definitely one thing I'm very happy to see is for most of the parts of Central Illinois here, we are out of the drought, officially for the first time since last year, which was really awesome to see. There's still a little bit of a trouble area over by Champaign, that area. That's not really necessarily a drought, but just a little bit dry, which is nothing too unusual for this time of year and moving forward. So definitely now that we have all this moisture in the ground, Let's keep it in the ground and let's get those crops to have a good start moving forward for the spring. That's one thing I'm really happy to see.
Mhm.
Obviously I think we got 7 inches of rain in April, and our normal rainfall average is 4.
Mhm.
So we definitely have a lot of moisture there that we can use moving forward in May, and hopefully we get those timely rains in May and June.
It's interesting that those April showers were very timely,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. But I did talk to a few guys about their tilling practices, and a lot of guys said they, just because of how dry it was, they decided to just pass on tilling and just do no-till planting this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, the dry conditions certainly part of that. Fuel prices, obviously, when the conflict started in Iran, I think that when we've seen fuel prices continue to increase ever since then, those decisions about, is it worth it to make that one extra tillage pass, or just, hey, we'll just do it at one time, go through with the planter, and there are benefits and drawbacks to no-till. Obviously, we could have some stand issues, some long-lasting disease issues with no-till, but definitely I think that economic kind of factor of it definitely drove a lot of producers this year.
Talk to me a little bit about those input prices and how much you think that will impact the growing season, the treatment of the crop this year. What do you think?
Well, I think I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and I think one of the things that we have to consider is right now for 2026, most producers have gotten their fertilizers and most of their other chemicals figured out what they're going to put on this year. Obviously, we can't account for diseases that are going to show up during the growing season, but for the most part, especially on the fertilizer side, most producers have gotten their things figured out and were ordered kind of last fall, right? What's going to be interesting to see is how long does this conflict in Iran continue on?
Mm-hmm.
And then how will that impact fertilizer prices for the next growing season?
Okay.
If the conflict in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz closures continue to linger on further here in 2026, I would expect the fertilizer prices for next year are going to continue to still remain higher. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that can change between now and even 10 minutes after we get done with our conversation here, but it's those long-term impacts that this year, yes, we're going to see an impact, obviously, with fuel, and if we have to, spot buy fertilizer on the, at this moment, but it's those long-term impacts, especially if we continue to see the Strait of Hormuz being closed.
Totally. When this is kind of just a question out of my own curiosity, when do producers kind of start to make those decisions for fertilizer and such for the next year?
Usually kind of about harvest time is when a lot of those sales folks will start getting out there and talking to their producers, seeing, okay, what was good this year? What did we lack on? Is there anything we need to change? If there are new products coming out, and then kind of starting the fall is when those decisions will be made about purchasing, when are we going to need it? And so that way it can apply in the fall or even in the spring.
That makes sense. Yeah, sure. When it comes to the planting season, one thing that you noted there in your report was the early plant corn. I mean, corn is going in the ground very early this year. How much do you think like cold nights like we're experiencing right now will impact that crop, especially the emerge crop?
It certainly can. Obviously, we're not quite out of that last frost date. I think that range is kind of May 1st to May 10th for this part of the state, last I checked. So we're not quite out of the woods yet. So if we get a really hard frost or even a freeze over the next couple of weeks, it can really damage those those crops. But if the crop is in the ground, then they'll generally still be protected. The ground kind of acts as like a blanket, if you will, especially if it's sunny during the day, helps warm up the soil and kind of it will keep that soil or keep that seeds kind of warm enough to where it isn't damaged as much. But it definitely could still be an impact for those early emerge crops.
What do you know about if you're getting that corn crop in the ground, particularly guys that have it maybe wrapped up by this May 1 date? How does that impact yields, or does it?
I'm not sure. I'm sure there's plenty of studies on there, but definitely it's one to keep an eye on. It and depends, if all the entire field exhibits frost damage, how will that impact growth moving forward for the rest of the year? There's definitely a lot of research out there on that. I just can't recall it.
Yeah, no, it's
right
cool.
now.
It's cool. Yeah, for sure. Reagan Tibbs is the commercial ag educator, U of I Extension in Logan Menard and Sangamon counties. And of course, with that, Reagan, that the planting season kind of comes on the heels now of a new farm bill that's in place. What do we know about the new farm bill?
Yeah, so yesterday, what do most people my age do? They pay attention to sports, everything. I pay attention to congressional debates during my day. So yesterday, the House Representatives passed the skinny farm bills, it's being called, which includes, I think you and I have talked about before, a lot of the provisions that were not in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which was passed last summer. So they went through the whole debate process. They actually started on Wednesday evening, like super, super late. I think they got in like 2 or 3 in the morning out there. That's really hard for the people in Congress to work on sometimes. And so yesterday's, they went through a lot of amendments. Some of the amendments included renewable fuel standards, pesticide labeling and lawsuits, rotisserie chickens. Can you purchase a rotisserie chicken on SNAP, which has been a pretty interesting debate to listen to. So that bill passed yesterday. I believe the vote was it was a close-ish vote, but it got enough votes to pass through. There was some bipartisan support there for it, and some bipartisan opposition, most notably. So now is the Senate. The Senate has seemed that they're going to begin the process here soon. Obviously, there's a lot of other things still in the Senate that they have to work on. So it'll probably take some time for them to consider it, and they're likely going to have their own changes they're going to want to make. For example, if there was an amendment in the House that didn't get on, and the member of the House really wants it in there, they're going to try to work their connections in the Senate, try to get it in the Senate version of the bill. And so likely we'll see some changes in the Senate. And then when that happens, they'll have to go back to the House and see if the House approves it. So it's still going to take some time for it to get approved. But hopefully now that it's passed through the House, it's cleared one major hurdle. It's got a couple more to go still.
Talk to me a little bit about like what are some of the what are some of the sticking points in the farm bill for like local producers, Central Illinois producers?
I think one of the big topics is E15, year-round E15. That's one we hear seemingly every year or every time the farm bill comes up, or even most times, is just, can year-round E15 get approved? I know a lot of commodity groups and farm bureaus and others, have positions on that. That seems to be a sticking point with some. The pesticide labeling and lawsuits was a topic this year that got a lot of attention and got a lot of publicity when that amendment came up. So I think those types of things that, on a broad spectrum, you might think, oh, well, those decisions made in Washington, they may not necessarily affect me. But as a producer, you do have to be mindful, especially if it changes program requirements or enacts new rules or regulations that we have to follow as local producers.
Sure. Anything you were following out of the farm bill, or anything that was of note to you, and maybe like long-term impacts on ag, things like that?
Definitely, I think we need to get the renewal for things like CRP done. That's in this bill, to renew it back to the normal 5-year cycle like we've normally seen. And other sort of those conservation type programs, equip, adding things to promote precision agriculture use for some of those conservation programs. I think it's something that, as precision ag technology become more and more prevalent and more widely used across agriculture, having those in there really been impactful. And then also expanding support for specialty crop growers through our commodity programs. Those seem to get put on the back burner when we talk about commodity programs. And so if we can add in support some of those specialty growers across the country and here in Illinois, I think that'd be really impactful as well.
You said it was called the Farm Bill Light?
Skinny Farm Bill.
Farm Bill. I'm sorry.
Bill Light, Skinny Farm Bill, same kind of idea. It doesn't include every single provision that we would normally find in a farm bill, just those ones that were not in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed last summer.
So what were the highlights of ag in the One Big Beautiful Bill for producers?
The changes to the commodity price, or to the commodity support programs. So those mostly being ARC and PLC. It changed the effective reference prices for those, which had been pretty stable since the 2014 and 2018 farm bills. But again, were adjusted and increased for most of our covered commodities. There are some other changes relating to some other programs. It changed a lot of how the funding was allocated for conservation programs. If we go all the way back to the it was 2021, I believe, with the Inflation Reduction Act, whenever that was passed, that allocated a lot of money to the Commodity Credit Corporation for conservation programs. What the One Big Beautiful Bill did was it took that money that was in the Commodity Credit Corporation and reallocated it back out to some of those conservation programs, but then also used to support some of those increases in commodity prices.
Got it. So what is next for the farm bill? I mean, do we still need to work on a full farm bill, or what happens?
So once this is passed, then we'll have to wait for another 5 years. So we'll probably have to wait until
we have a new president.
2030, more than likely 2031. And then hopefully we'll get on a single schedule now where we have one single farm bill rather than two farm bills that are passed. So hopefully we can get back to that traditional 5-year cycle. As it says, it has to be in a 5-year cycle. That's just the way it's normally always been through Congress, except for this recent year.
So do we need to merge what's in the Big Beautiful Bill with with a normal farm bill then? Is that what we'll have to do?
Well, so what you take those ag provisions that were in the One Big Beautiful Bill and you combine them with what's here in this farm bill that was passed yesterday through the House to make the true original kind of farm bill structure.
When do you think the Senate will take this up and pass it?
I really don't know. There's a lot of things that are still floating around in the Senate, and they've got a lot of things on their plate. And Congress more broadly has a lot of things they got to figure out because they're going to have to go on break here sometime this summer because midterms are this November, so they're still in that campaign mindset. So I think that's going to be top of everybody's mind, trying to pass those things that look good for their campaign promotions and they can go out and campaign on. So I don't know when we'll see this get up, and it's up to the will of the Senate at this point.
How much do you think the midterms will change maybe the outlook in the Senate if they don't get to it until after the midterms?
I think this could definitely be something we see after the midterms. To say it's going to be done before the midterms right now, I think there are just too many other things going on in the Senate that would prevent it from getting to this, that I think they're going to try to focus on some of those, like I said, key priority issues that are going to look good when it comes time to campaign for the midterms.
Very good. Well, on that note, Reagan, let's break. Come back with some more. Reagan Tibbs, commercial ag educator, U of I Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. More to come with Reagan on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Two-sided trade with corn, beans, and Chicago wheat. Make corn up 1 1/4, 466. July corn up 3, 477 3/4, and December new crop 497 3/4, up 3 1/2. May beans down 1 1/4, 1180 3/4. July beans up a penny, 1196 3/4. November new crop 1177 1/2. Up 4 1/2. May Chicago wheat down 3 1/2, 620 1/4. May KC wheat is up 5, 683. May bean meal 322.50, up 20 cents. May bean oil up 4 cents, 76.40. Livestock trade. May feeders 376.57, up 392. June live cattle up $1.22, 255.22. May lean hogs down 27 cents. 93.17. Energy market, July Brent crude oil down 318, 107.23. RFD Radio Network.
AgriTalk is the radio talk show for American agriculture. Hi, everybody. I'm Chip Flory, your host. We join you weekday mornings from 10 until 11 on WHOW, on AM and FM, and on the WHOW streams. We provide farmers and ranchers with timely insights and information aimed at improving their operations. Join me, Chip Flory, weekdays at 10:06 on Central Illinois Ag Station, WHOW.
SIU Center for Family Medicine is here to help with back to school and sports physicals. Healthy kids learn better and play harder. Call 217-735-2317 today to schedule your appointment. That's 217-735-2317. SIU Medicine, forward for you.
DeWittDailyNews.com is the area's leading local news source 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the latest local news, obituaries, police blotter, weather forecast, and more with no paywall. Head to DeWittDailyNews.com to get the local information you need to know.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Reagan Tibbs, commercial ag educator, U of I Extension, Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. Reagan, you're leading some research over in Hartsburg. What's going on?
Yeah, so Extension has a plot up at Hartsburg, about 17 acres. It was donated to Extension shortly after we were founded in Logan County, and the purpose of it is to do research demonstration. The idea is that we can get research, out of the university and out of their research plots and put it in local areas where local producers and local people can see the research that we're doing, and they can have a direct impact and benefit to their operations. So this year we're excited to do a soybean seeding rate trial. So we're going to have one control rate of 120,000 seeds an acre. We're going to do that across the sidelands and headlands of the field. And then in the rest of the field, we're going to try out different seeding rates. So using that 120,000, then we're going to go down to 80,000, 100,000, then go up to 140,000 and 160,000 seeds per acre, just to see what happens. What do we see in terms of yield differences? What do we see with weed suppression and weed pressures? What do we see in terms of nutrient uptake? Those types of things, to see if there is kind of a more optimal rates, or what you could expect if you planted those different types of seeding levels.
Will this be more than a one-time trial?
We'll do soybeans this year, and then we might, when it comes time to do soybeans again, we might do it again just to see and get another get another year of data off it. The nice thing about this experiment that we've designed is that it's a checkerboard design. So the software I used to help design it, it has 7 replications of each of those different seeding rates. So that way we have that enough variability within the field, and they're kind of randomly placed across the field, so we can get different aspects and different, if one part of the field has different levels of phosphorus or nitrogen or a different pH level, then we can compare that to other parts of the field that have that same seeding rate. So
Yeah.
we'll certainly try it moving forward and see what kind of data we get out of it.
Any like funding that comes along with this or anything of that nature?
We're very fortunate to have some generous folks around the area who donate not only the ability to do the field work for us. We have a farmer up in that area who's very generous in planting and harvesting for us and doing other types of applications. We've also been able to get the seed donated for this as well. So we're very fortunate to have those types of connections in the community who are willing to support that local research for this.
Gotcha. Very good. How often will you be out monitoring things and all of that?
I'll probably be up there at least once a week, barring that I'm in the area and that I'm able to get up there. But generally, I'll use that information that we get to submit crop reports that I do through the Illinois Soybean Association extension and partnership with Soybean. We do crop reports around the state that we publish every week. So I'll use the information we're getting from that and plus other aspects I'm seeing across our 3 counties. So I'll try to be out there at least once a week just to kind of get a gauge of things.
Who all is working on this with you? Is it just like extension, or you mentioned Soybean Association? Who's monitoring this?
Well, so the plot itself is extension based. So
Yeah, sure.
Ourselves working with that, working with the Richard Farm, but on the Soybean Association, they have on the crop monitoring, crop reporting, they have their staff and their team of folks, agronomy folks that help do their reporting, and then they work with extension and other folks around the state to get those reports in as well.
Gotcha. Very good. Well, we look forward to what comes of that. And can folks follow along with what you're doing out there? Are you going to be blogging about it or video blogging?
Absolutely. We'll have, once we get the soybeans in the ground, I'll put up a blog post kind of describing what our trial is and what we can expect out of it. Then, of course, during the rest of the year, we'll have crop reports going out. And then at the end of the year, once we get all of our harvest data in, I'll put a blog post about it. Folks can read that at our blog, my blog Farm Focus, which they can find on our website, extension.illinois.edu/LMS.
Very good. Well, Reagan, it's always good to talk to you, my friend, and we'll catch up in May.
Yep, absolutely. Good to talk to you, Seth.
Very good. Reagan Tibbs, commercial ag educator, University of Illinois Extension in Logan, Menard, and Sangamon counties. My guest here in studio here this morning on the WHOW Morning Show. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Top of the hour coming up, we join Network News on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.